Welcome back to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in Russia in the past 24 hours. The biggest Russia story today is a race between Moscow's ballistic pressure and Ukraine's attempt to build an answer it can actually sustain. President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv wants visible progress before the end of 2026 on a domestically produced anti-ballistic system under the European Freya program. Ukraine would make the missiles and launchers, while European partners would contribute radars, sensors, and missile technology. That is an industrial strategy, not an immediate shield. Successful tests do not create a fielded network overnight, and Ukraine still needs emergency deliveries of Patriot interceptors. But the direction matters because the August 5th barrage exposed a brutal gap. Ukrainian defenses stopped much of the drone wave, but intercepted none of the ballistic and quasi-ballistic missiles. Zelensky says interceptor deliveries have fallen to roughly one-third of last year's level. Moscow can exploit that gap repeatedly and with mounting political effect. Drones can reveal defensive positions, consume cheaper interceptors, and complicate tracking. Faster missiles can then use the remaining seams. This gives Russia a scalable way to impose civilian and infrastructure costs, while Kyiv waits for ammunition that depends on foreign production schedules and political decisions. Ukraine's answer is becoming two-track. The first track is that longer-term missile production effort. The second is a deeper strike campaign against Russia's fuel, maritime, and logistics base. Ukrainian forces reported attacks on oil facilities in Bashkortostan and Yaroslavl, patrol boats in the Black Sea, and vessels linked to Russia's Shadow Fleet. Those operations force repairs, disperse air defenses, and challenge the idea that distance protects Russian industrial assets. The exchange is still asymmetric. Ukraine can damage a refinery or interrupt a shipping node. Russia can answer with a larger stock of missiles and drones against cities, railways, ports, and national infrastructure. Kyiv's deep strikes create costs and bargaining leverage, but they do not yet cancel Moscow's ability to generate immediate civilian harm. Now move from energy to food security, because the same campaign is hitting the commercial system that keeps Ukraine solvent. After Russian attacks on port and shipping infrastructure, Kyiv announced subsidized loans and aid for farmers facing disrupted exports. A strike on a wheat carrier bound for Guinea-Bissau caused a fatality and a fire. That turns a local attack into a direct warning for crews, insurers, traders, and food importing countries. Ukraine is expanding alternative routes, including a coastal Romanian option expected to add partial capacity later in August. But there is no magic side door around Odessa. Smaller routes can distribute risk, yet they cannot quickly reproduce the volume, financing, and logistics of the main corridor. Russia can therefore generate pressure without closing every port. Higher freight costs, war risk premiums, delayed loading, and tighter farm credit can do part of the work. Moscow's own energy system is under strain, but it has buffers. Belarus reportedly sent record gasoline and diesel volumes to Russia in July as refineries faced outages, maintenance, and repeated Ukrainian attacks. At the export end, China's Sinopec increased purchases of Russian ESPO crude as Middle Eastern supply tightened. Belarus helps with domestic availability, while Chinese demand helps preserve revenue. Those workarounds buy Russia time. They also increase dependence on partners that can demand better prices, favorable payment arrangements, or political concessions. Every rerouted cargo and emergency fuel flow shifts leverage away from Moscow, even when the immediate damage stays manageable. The Kremlin can absorb pressure, but the cost of adaptation rises as more of the system runs through Belarusian supply, Chinese buyers, intermediaries, and shadow fleet routes. The coalition dimension is widening too. Ukrainian intelligence says Russia intends to deploy about 90 North Korean personnel, 6 launchers, and as many as 120 KN-23 and KN-24 missiles in the Voronezh region. The full configuration has not been independently verified, so keep the caveat attached. Still, a dedicated missile unit would move North Korean participation beyond arms transfers toward embedded operational support. That would help Russia sustain ballistic pressure when Ukraine's Patriot inventory is strained. It would also give North Korean personnel combat lessons in targeting, maintenance, electronic warfare, and Western air defense performance. Moscow gets launch capacity. Pyongyang gets a real-world laboratory. That exchange would connect European and Asian security even more tightly. Britain's new sanctions against ships, banks, and industrial entities show that Western governments are trying to raise the transaction cost of this network. Enforcement remains the deciding factor. A list can complicate financing and insurance, but Russia has shown that it can reroute trade when major buyers and intermediaries keep participating. Russian state messaging packages these pressures as proof of national endurance. Coverage emphasizes claims of mass drone interceptions, command modernization, Western ammunition shortages, and growing Asian ties. The message is that Russia faces a broad foreign campaign, but is learning faster than its opponents. That framing turns disruption into evidence of resilience and avoids any admission that repeated Ukrainian strikes are forcing expensive changes. The next indicators are clear. Watch whether Ukraine fields a credible Freya test schedule, whether allies close the immediate interceptor gap, and whether Russia repeats a ballistic heavy package against major cities. Watch ship movements and insurance behavior around Odessa, not only reported damage. And watch for visual confirmation of a North Korean missile formation in Russia. If that deployment becomes visible, the war's coalition structure will have crossed another line. Thanks for listening. Keep your maps open, your sources skeptical, and your notifications on. For the written brief, find us at restrictedhandling.substack.com. See you tomorrow.